Is your camera on?
It was.
And Anthony, if you could just switch off the chime, so when people join, it doesn't announce the chime. Anthony, if you're able to do that. Thank you, Anthony. Back to you.
All right, there you are, Harry. You're on.
Good.
All right, we got Harry Hurry, Unite for Freedom. Go ahead, Harry.
Hi, Steve. How are you? Thanks for
I'm
having
doing
me on.
good.
We have to always deal with the last minute technical glitches. But anyway, at Unite for Freedom, we're doing quite a few things. I'm sorry that my camera is bouncing a little bit. But, we put out a report. We've got some very disturbing findings that we're still trying to get somebody to explain to us. But we've done an extensive examination of the voter histories that are released during early voting in Texas. We've done this in other states, but the one that's most ripe at the moment is the primary elections in Texas. And basically what we do is we take the voter histories, the voter tallies, and we compare what is happening with regard to the registration of votes or the application of votes to particular individuals. And in Texas, as in other states, we see a large mess. And so hundreds of thousands of votes that are attributed to an individual, and then that individual is deleted from the record. Now, we have some that oscillate. Oscillations in normal situations may or may not be able to be explained by mechanical or procedural errors, but the idea that you have people that show as having voted and then they drop off of the voter history, this is not explained by normal data processing problems. And frankly, the others are not explained by competent data processing. So we often talk about it internally, what could explain these data findings, and the frank answer is nothing can explain it except malice or ignorance or incompetence. So what is it? Is it an error in the systems? Is it a programmatic piece of mischief? Is it a false flag that's being injected for the purposes of getting people to chase the wrong rabbit hole? There's a whole host of potential explanations, but all of them point to a system that's not trustworthy, a system that can't produce an honest result, and one that appears to be tampered with. And the tampering, we could get into that in detail, but what is a better approach is to say this. Unite for Freedom's data has always been fully transparent. Anybody that has an interest in the matter, whether they're filing a lawsuit or law enforcement, we've always made our raw data available to others. Again, not for the purposes of, doing some hit job in the press on Unite for Freedom, but for the purposes of giving clarity to people that have a direct interest in litigation or a direct interest in fixing the system, finding out what happened and repairing it. Our goal has always been to have a system that renders an accurate result. I mean, if you listen to our podcasts and our speeches that we've made, look at the content we make, we always talk about having a reliable, honest result in the elections. And it's obvious that this primary has not produced an honest or transparent result. Again, hundreds of thousands of votes are changed. They're shown as having voted, then they're shown as not having voted, and some of them are shown to having voted again. Let's say some things are just procedural or process error. You end up with some that are showing to have voted and never returned to the vote again. There's no process by which you can make adjustments to these federal records without some sort of approved adjudication process. They certainly did not go through adjudication. So What is it? By what means? Let's say it's just an error for a moment. By what means did they fix the errors? And how is it that votes were attributed to individuals that no longer show as having voted? Our next step is to look deeply into the data set itself. I mean, these are fairly fresh results. We were concerned that we went through it with a fine-tooth comb repeatedly. And it certainly looks like there is direct tampering, malicious tampering. Is it hidden partially by the noise? Yes, it is. I mean, the fact of the matter is that improperly so, but the state election commissions in general don't put a lot of effort into keeping accurate voter histories. And so one of the issues may be that it's so inaccurate and so poorly handled that it's showing these types of results and it's not reflective of what's really happening. However, this federal record is a requirement. It's not something that's trivial. It's actually required that they keep an accurate record of voter history for a variety of reasons. One of which is it's a natural check on whether or not the number of votes being counted reconciles to the number of voters that went through the line or mailed in ballots or mailed in absentee ballots during the vote. So it's a very disturbing finding. We're ready to cooperate with the RNC and the DNC. We're ready to cooperate with election officials, and we're certainly ready to cooperate with law enforcement, which we will be doing when we forward these, as suspicious results that bear an official federal investigation, which is what we're going to do. This election should not be certified. The primaries should not be certified in Texas or anywhere else these kind of findings are found until there's a reconciliation of how these happened. How did a voter get on the rolls or on the voter list, off the voter list, back onto the voter list? We have one person in Dallas County that flipped back and forth 71 times. We've heard some people make outlandish comments about some sort of, incremental tally, cumulative tally thing, allowing things to drop on and off. That's true if such a process existed in a way that was compatible with the numbers. The numbers don't show that. We have voters that are showing as having voted that never come back on to the system. Were they recorded incorrectly in the voter, poll books or however it's handled in Texas? Were they attributed a vote? How did they get attributed a vote to begin with? The fact of the matter is they should never have been attributed a vote. And the fact that they were means that there was an error that needed to be reconciled. At a minimum, this behavior, though, of things coming in and going out and coming in, showing for a while, not showing for a while, is direct evidence, and it's in the hundreds of thousands. It's not 10,000. It's not 2,000. It's almost 500,000 total across the system. In addition to that, we did a run just quickly, and this was just released today on Space or X. We did a run today that shows 1,400 people voted both in the Democrat primary and the Republican primary. All of those people, as I understand it, committed election fraud in Texas. Did they do it themselves or did someone do it for them? That's what the election officials and the law enforcement officials will have to investigate. We're not saying that this is clear and irrefutable evidence of election fraud. We're saying that this is clear and irrefutable evidence that there's something terribly wrong. And when the only excuses that can be offered so far by election officials do not even match the data, it means that they're not, taking it seriously, the need to have accurate and honest elections. So, and of course, the duplicate voting, in two different primaries is completely illicit. Were there 1,400 misattributions? How does that even occur in Texas? So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. They need to be answered quickly because the primaries are going to get certified very shortly. And the fact is that without a reconciliation, they should not be certified. So that's in a nutshell. We're doing some similar things with Pennsylvania right now. And that information will be coming out next week, but it shows similar patterns. not with quite the same density that Texas allows because of the way the data can be downloaded. But the fact of the matter is we've teamed up with Greg Stenstrom and Leah Hoops and others with regard to their existing process challenges and machine challenges regarding certification primarily. But we've given them measurements of the amount of malfeasance in the system. So we now have crossed the Rubicon with regard to being able to prove scale, materiality, if you will, in terms of the size of the, let's just call them for now, uninformed errors. We don't know what they are. We don't pretend to know who did it. We don't know who's responsible for it. But what I say is it's a picture of a crime scene. These scorecards that we produce are full of errors, millions of errors. And so what we have is a picture of a dead body. You don't need to know who did it to investigate it. We've been told over and over and over again, if we don't know who to attack or who to sue or who to charge with these things, that we can't proceed with a lawsuit. The fact of the matter is, who would ever ignore a body laying on the sidewalk that's been shot 5 times and say, I can't investigate that because I don't know who shot him. This is the kind of choice that they're forcing us to make across the country. I know that some of it's inconvenient because, whether you're red, blue, or purple, you're going to be offended by the fact that they are stealing the elections, whoever they are, across the whole country. And this has to be stopped. It has to be stopped now. We all have the feeling that we're headed toward a crisis. And I'm sure they're going to talk about it. And I apologize, Leah and Greg, if I steal any of your thunder at all. But there's a patriot in Pennsylvania that's been incarcerated without a warrant and accused of being mentally ill. I won't mention his name because I don't know what you can talk about and what you can't talk about. But this is what they do in Russia. They put people in psychiatric hospitals to shut them up and get them away. We now have an actual case of someone being put away because they're inconvenient to the establishment, whoever the establishment is. This case occurred in Pennsylvania. But when it goes live, as I understand it, hundreds of people have come forward having had the same experience across the country. This is where we're headed if we don't get fair elections. If the politicians never feel like they're going to respond or be responsible or held accountable to the people, we are going to just get in a worse and worse place as they get away with worse and worse conduct. And we have to stop it now.
Harry, how do we reach you? We got 1 minute.
So how do you reach us? On unite4freedom.com, uniteforfreedom.com. We're open to cooperating with anybody. You can disagree with our conclusions, but our data is solid. And we're more than happy to help people through this issue of materiality with regard to the voter identity, the voters that voted, the vote-to-voter discrepancy that seems to be everywhere, and this long-term horizontal analysis both before and after the election that shows that election attribution is being changed. The only possible explanation is that it's an error or it's fraud. But the cover-up is often worse than the crime, right? There's no reason or no ability under the law to change things that were an error that would have been included in the certification of the election. This process has been hidden in the dark way too long. We've seen this data since 2020, and we've gotten better at finding it, measuring it, and now we have real-time data as well as long-term data that shows that somebody in the background is deleting voter history and adding voter history without telling anybody about it.
Thank you very much, Harry.
Uniteforfreedom.com. Thank you very much.
Leah Hoops, you're up next. You want to unmute or somebody unmute her? You got it.
Hi. Yes. Hi. Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, you're good.
Beautiful. Thank you, Steve, for giving us a platform here. Appreciate you very much. And it was good to see Harry's face. Hi, Harry. Thank you for all the work that you guys do.
Hi, Leah.
There's a lot of great patriots and people across this country that don't quite get the platform that are doing the actual trench fighting in this country. And for those that don't know my story, you can certainly follow me on X, hoops underscore Leah, Leah. I was a witness in 2020. We did a sting operation in Delaware County. And what I want to talk about today is not so much the election fraud, because we know that that happened. If you don't know that that happened, then I have a bridge to sell you, to be quite honest. These elections have been rigged, and we're way past that point. And I've not moved on, but really what it's done is it's opened up the floodgates to understand that stolen elections are a means to an end. And it keeps these corrupt judges, which you're seeing in President Trump's, cases, and every other case that's going on. It keeps these politicians in place that are corrupt and stealing from the people, whether it's deed theft or they're stealing property, like Josh Shapiro is doing right now in Pennsylvania from his neighbor. If it's stealing from the vulnerable, or when they want to shut up a whistleblower. And thank you, Harry, for talking about that case. That is Sean Connolly, who is a dear friend of mine, who actually runs the site www.joshshapirofraud.com. Sean Connolly uncovered in Montgomery County, where Josh Shapiro got his political career started. He uncovered consumer fraud because his house was built by Toll Brothers. Toll Brothers is a very large donor to Josh Shapiro. He uncovered that his house was built faulty, and what he uncovered from that through public records was that his township and county were in on it, and they had covered up everything. And that kind of rolled Sean into a whirlwind of, helping other victims, not just of consumer fraud, but also there are victims of, unfortunately, the family court system. There are, people that he's helped out with exposing election fraud in Montgomery County. So Sean is a very, very great patriot. And unfortunately, he is going through a contentious divorce. And they use the PFA system, which is protection from abuse, and a 302 system to shut people up. And yes, Harry, that's exactly what happened to Sean Connolly. He was put into a mental institution. He was 302'd, and they have used this process to completely shut him up and keep him away from speaking out and supporting people like myself and other victims and exposing really nasty, awful things. I actually have been writing about it and following it since it happened last week. You can find it on Substack right now. It's the Delco Patriot, where you can find the whole story. I have now escalated this problem to Universal Health Services, which owns the behavioral health unit that Sean is in, called Brook Glen. It's in Fort Washington, Pennsylvania. Universal Health Services is located in King of Prussia. They have already been exposed. They are being sued by many people. As a matter of fact, Paris Hilton exposed Universal Health Systems years ago because she was at a boarding school in Utah that was owned by Universal Health Systems. So what we've done here is we now have Sean Connolly, a whistleblower who has helped other victims, who's sitting inside of a very corrupt, abusive, mental health behavior hospital, and he's exposing what's going on from the inside. So what they thought they could do was shut him up, and actually what it's done is it's now giving it national attention. So this is what we have been going through, myself and Greg Stenstrom, who is on this call here today. And I want to talk about the lawfare that they use. And the fact of the matter is, it's not that they didn't commit election fraud, it's the fact that they did. And the onus is on the government to prove that they ran a free and fair election. And if they ran a free and fair election, why have they gone to the extent that they have to come after victims, or to come after witnesses, or they come after the people that have exposed them? And that's exactly what they've done. And Greg and I have been sued 3 different times. We've won 2 of those cases, and we are still going through a lawsuit right now where we are being sued by Delaware County government for what they call abusive process. So once we started filing petitions starting in 2020 all the way up until present, what the county decided to do was to sue us in order to shut us up. And this is something that's happening all across the country. These are the stories that don't get talked about. And what that's allowed for us to do is to, not only talk about it and give other people courage, but we allow these whistleblowers and victims and witnesses to come forward, and they feel like they have a fighting chance. And we've been able to help other people not only file pro se cases to, fight whatever corruption is, a government is attacking them. And we've won our own cases, and we are winning in this current case. And it's basically started a movement. And that's what I really wanted to talk about today, is that this is the underbelly of what's going on in our government. It's not about the election fraud. It's about the public corruption and the evil that we've experienced since coming forward. And it's a revolution, to be quite honest. We are holding people accountable. These people are terrified of us, and we're winning, and we're teaching other people how to do it. And that's the whole point. They want us to be afraid. They want us to be silent. They want to try to bankrupt us. They want to try to defame us and scare us to death, to the point that we don't talk. And I refuse to back down. I will not ever bend a knee to these tyrants. And I really think this is what we need to be talking about in every county. We need to be standing up for our, for we the people. And that's where I am right now. And I've kind of not moved away from the election fraud. Obviously, I'm still fighting. But I really want to be able to help other people fight the good fight and fight against the public corruption, and be able to, stand tall and have courage. So if you guys would like to reach out, my website is www.rhgpublish.com. You're able to contact me. I can do any kind of consult with you to talk about, maybe a particular case that you're going through, or, if you're being attacked, or if you just don't know where to start. Because obviously we know that we can't go to attorneys. They have not been helpful at all. And honestly, the good ones that have come forward, they've also been attacked as well, all across the country. So I wanted to say thank you very much, Steve, for allowing me to come on and talk about Sean Connolly, talk about my situation, and be able to, hopefully help other people that are going through any kind of situation where they feel like they just don't know where to go and how to fight back.
Well, thank you very much. Before we get our next guest on, I just want everybody to see we're wearing our new 250 shirts, the flagshirt.com. If you look behind me, I'll be changing shirts. We've got about 20 new shirts. We're really celebrating. Somewhere a couple of days before Flag Day, we'll be running our national 250 election security precinct strategy meeting in June. So we'll let you know about that. Tomorrow, very important. I normally don't do back-to-back Zoom meetings. Tomorrow will be our precinctprojectusa.org. If everybody goes to precinctprojectusa.org and signs up, tomorrow we will have about 8 million people on this. We have about 100 podcasters that have signed up for tomorrow. We will be at 2:00 Eastern time, only on podcasters. We will not be on Zoom other than the speakers. Stern American Rumble will be hosting it, and we'll have a tremendous amount of people. Our next guest is a good friend of mine, Dr. Robert Epstein, an author, professor, psychologist. I don't know how many titles we can give him, but he's got some important information to come out with. Dr. Epstein, come on down.
Okay, can you hear me this time?
We can hear you this time. Great.
Wonderful. Okay, great to see you again, Steve. In December 2023, I testified before the U.S. Congress for the second time, this time to introduce members of Congress with whom I work very closely to a monitoring system that my team and I have been building since 2016. It's cost us about $8 million to build this system. It's the first such system ever built in the world. And what it does is it monitors the content that big tech companies are sending to real voters, registered voters in all 50 states, politically balanced. We at that time had 13,000 of these people helping us. We call them field agents. We now have more than 17,000. So in other words, we're monitoring real content that companies like Google and Facebook and Instagram and so on are sending to registered voters in all 50 states and to many other children as well. So we're trying to see what are these companies actually showing to voters, and are they showing content in a way that's fair? I introduced this to Congress in 2024. We greatly expanded the system, and we had an impact on Google and other companies. We got them to back off on their election manipulations. I'll give you one quick example here. On October 31st, right before the election, we found that on Google's homepage, they were sending out 50% more Go Vote reminders to Democrats than to Republicans. Now, that page is seen 500 million times a day just in the United States. So imagine a partisan Go Vote reminder being sent out right before the election. We went public with that information, and we got them to back off. November 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, they stopped. They stopped doing that. So in other words, monitoring, what we're doing now is monitoring on a very large scale. Monitoring can stop these companies from interfering with our elections, from indoctrinating our children, and so on. If you want to see the public dashboard for our system, which operates 24 hours a day and is still expanding, please go to America's, that's with an S, americasdigitalshield.com. That's America's with an S, americasdigitalshield.com. There's also a link that you can click there if you want to help us build this system, because we need to make it bigger and bigger and bigger. So at the moment, we have court admissible data in 23 states. Our goal, at least a month before the midterms, is to have court admissible data in all 50 states. That will force these tech companies to stop their manipulations. And so that's what our team does. We're the only team in the world that does this kind of work. We are the first team in the world ever to have built a nationwide monitoring system. And it's very, very, very critical, obviously, very critical that we get these companies to stop their manipulations, and especially to stop indoctrinating our kids. So that's what we do. We also have measured very precisely now for over a period of 13 years how many votes they can shift. Now that one manipulation that I mentioned to you, partisan Go Vote reminders, that can shift millions of votes in the days before the election and on election day. And right now they're doing it again. They started again. They're sending out partisan registered to vote reminders, and very soon they're going to start sending out partisan mail in your ballot reminders. So we're talking about here manipulation on a massive scale, has never happened before in history, and it's made possible by the internet. And what happens on the internet is controlled by a very small number of executives and a very small number of companies. 95% of the donations from those companies go to Democrats. I happen to lean left myself, but I object strongly to having a private company, which is not accountable to the public, to have that much power to shift that many votes, to indoctrinate our kids. And the only way to stop them that I know of is with monitoring. So 100 years ago, a US Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis said, sunlight is the best disinfectant and street lamps the best policeman. And that's what we are doing. We're casting light on what the big tech companies are doing. The more we learn about it, the scarier it is. I think all the work that you folks do and that Steve does is fantastic work, but just keep in mind that what's happening in the background that you don't see is happening on a massive scale. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands, we're talking about tens of millions of people are being impacted. The bottom line on our research is that we know that by sending people biased content, a company like Google or Facebook can shift between 20 and 80% of undecided voters literally in a matter of minutes toward one party or the other, toward one candidate or the other. That's between 20 and 80% of undecided voters, people who are vulnerable to being influenced. And these companies, because they track us, because their surveillance is so extreme, They know exactly who these people are. So please go to America's, with an S, americasdigitalshield.com. If you want to help us in any way, you'll see a link there where you can help us. And I really hope that you'll become more aware of what's happening here. If you want to learn how to protect your privacy and safety online and to teach your kids to do that, please see my article at myprivacytips.com. That's myprivacytips.com. And again, Steve, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to your wonderful group of followers. I appreciate it very much.
Sure. We'll get you back on again. Thank you for coming on. Let us know how everything goes, and we'll report it on the next couple of shows. Next up, we have somebody's going to stop in 1 second. Ohio Amy. We have a couple of minutes. She's got a great event coming up. Amy, unmute yourself if you can, or somebody unmute her. We got a couple of minutes to find her. Can you find her, Anthony?
Ohio Amy, if you'd be so kind to unmute.
You're not unmuted at me. You may have to unmute her, Anthony. All right. While we're waiting, there you go. Go ahead, Amy.
Hi, this is Ohio Amy with the Stay Awake America Tour. Thank you so much, Steve and Raj, for all what you do. And for a moment, just to give a shout out for the Stay Awake America Tour. I am on my way to Florida. Our next stop is this weekend, March 20th and 21st at Port St. Lucie, Florida. We're going to have a fantastic event. Our mission is to unite, engage, and activate local action for national impact. So we deliver truth, but you'll come and hear the truth, but we'll leave you with solutions. So solutions in health and civics, and increasing your faith in education. How we can fight against the Islamic threat to America and child sex trafficking. So again, our next event is this weekend. I encourage everybody to come. Port St. Lucie. You can find details at stayawakeamerica.com. That's stayawakeamerica.com. We want America to stay awake before it's too late. And I love all these speakers. Thank you all for everything you do. If you can't attend, please tell a friend. This is what Steve has shown us. When we unite, we will win. Divided, they win. So Stay Awake America. Thank you, Steve, so much. God bless
Thanks
all
for
of
coming
you.
on. You got it. Next up is Charlie Fleischman. He is in Virginia, founder of Republican Adversary Group. Charlie.
Hi, Steve. Charlie Fleischman, my partner, Danny Slayman's also online. 2 years ago, Danny and I met at a Republican breakfast and decided that the party was in total disarray, had a lot of infighting, and had no technical abilities. So we built a system that gave a Republican county or city unit a complete CRM process where they could manage their contacts and their membership and be able to have a website, all very easy to them. And we built it out for all 123 units in Virginia. We found out that a lot of our units didn't even have, 58 didn't have a website, and just as many weren't even on Facebook. So we started that project. We also found out that most of our party here in Virginia is very old, older than me, and not technically proficient. So we're active in about 20 of those 123 units that we found somebody to help. But it was a little bit too much for us to maintain by ourselves. So we developed a different product called Precincts Pro. Precincts Pro allowed us to expand out into other groups besides the party so we could build our grassroots better. Precincts Pro is doing very well. And within Precincts Pro, we have a neighborhood ambassador program. The neighborhood ambassador program lets anybody sign up. We check that they're a conservative Republican voter. And then we provide them the 10 names of their neighbors that are also the same feelings and thoughts. And they go out and they contact them personally. We give them the ability to call them or text them or email them from their own phone. Build up a group to start to build the precinct, one person at a time, one neighborhood at a time. That is being very effective. Just recently, We had one of our delegates here in Virginia die. The Democrats didn't even let him be buried. The day after they died, they called a special election. We had 3 days to create a canvass to get a candidate, select a candidate to replace them in a special election. They knew this guy was sick, so they had somebody that had been out there doing it for a long time before that. So in 3 days, we were able to, with our Precincts Pro and our neighborhood ambassadors, we were able to pull a canvass together, get about 2,000 people out to vote. They selected one of the candidates out of 6 Republican candidates. And we just held the election last night. And I can say within less than 3 weeks, we elected another Republican back to our delegate in a strong Republican neighborhood. So it works very well. We are continuing to expand that. We built it on a national, both the Republican advocates and the Precincts Pro, we built it at a national level. We are in multiple states. Our only limitation in expanding faster is being able to pull in additional data, whether it be the shape files for maps or whether it be the voter data. We do work with other PACs that are providing us data that help with that. We also have just launched another program that goes with the neighborhood ambassadors called Rise Up US Now. This is where we take current laws and things that are being debated by the legislatures, and our ambassadors can go in there and read the details from first a summary and down to the detail if the law that's being considered, and then reach out to their legislatures to make their input known. The difference here is that they're coming in as an individual vice a mass mail, where the legislators say, yeah, okay, this PAC's against us. They just throw everything into the trash can. So now this is coming from the representative that votes the guy. So it has a little bit more impact. Danny and I have built this on our own dime. To fund this now, we've opened up a 501c4 called Advocates in Action. That's where you can come and help our process. We're in Virginia. We're expanding out into, we're in Wisconsin. We have a start in Illinois. We have a start in Ohio. And one more I'm missing. I'm forgetting where it is right away. We're starting Georgia and South Carolina soon. We work with our ability with Precincts Pro. We can set up, if we have the data for that state, we can set up a site for somebody within 5 minutes. So we give the site to candidates. They build their own site. They have their own site to build their own ambassadors. So in case here in Virginia Beach, we have 4 people running for a city council race. We've given them each their own site. They're going out and getting their people, to get out and vote for them for the primary. But at the end of the primary, we'll have all those ambassadors that will now be Republicans. We also give different candidates, say we have a city council and a House delegate, maybe a state senate and a congresswoman all living together. We give them the ability to share their neighborhood ambassadors, to share their precinct captains. So one person that's going out doing door knocking or calling or talking to people in the neighborhood can reach out to all for the whole entire ticket. And we're just sort of multiplying the force factor with that. That's the basic of our program. It's easy to sign them. It's all free. We're funding it through the 501c4, and we're trying to build it out across the entire country to get the grassroots out, because Republicans lose because one of 2 things: they're always fighting with each other, or they stay home when it's not their candidate. So we're trying to overcome both of those things. On the voter integrity side, we are working and pulling in the data that we're trying to do that. Where we can have more accurate data. We pull data from various sources. When our ambassadors go out in their neighborhoods, they are able to edit the data. They're able to say, no, this person is not a Republican, they're a Democrat, or no, they just moved and it's a new neighborhood. So we have data that is now verified by the local unit. So it's better than what's coming from the major sources.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Appreciate you coming on today.
You're welcome.
We want to talk a little bit about the RNC has asked us to start to talk about Protect the Vote. Anybody who would like to be a poll watcher or poll worker, please sign up. These elections are coming on fast. As you know, we just got through Texas. They had more poll watchers and poll workers than ever before. They're getting good information together. remember tomorrow, our precinct project call. We'll talk about that. Again, I'm wearing one of my new shirts. You can go to www.theflagshirt.com. We don't ask for anybody money. We always pay for what it costs us to run these Zoom calls. And we want to thank everybody for doing it. Now, a good friend of mine, hopefully he's got some updated information. Dr. Jerome Corsi has been on a lot. He always has great information. Doctor, come on down.
Steve, it's great to be with you again. Thank you. And the new information, first of all, the Senate has voted to consider the SAVE Act. It's uncertain yet as to what the outcome is going to be. A number of Republicans, especially who feel they've benefited from this universal mail-in ballots, don't want it changed and are resisting going along with the majority. President Trump has said he won't sign any other legislation until this bill comes to his desk. So the outcome in the Senate is uncertain. But I think at the end game here, there'll be enormous pressure applied on those Republican senators who don't go along. In the background, I think Plan A has always been an executive order from President Trump based on the fact that the Chinese penetrated and influenced the 2020 election. We've shown on our website, God's Five Stones, that there are algorithms within the State Board of Election voter registration files that allow the creation of millions of undocumented, modified duplicate voters that don't really exist, that can be hidden in the database and used in mail-in ballot schemes. So I think the final end game for Donald Trump is what he's always said, an executive order based on national security emergency declarations, which could invoke Article 2 powers as commander-in-chief, saying that since our elections have been broached by foreign nations, this is a national security threat. We're going to have proof of citizenship, going to have voter ID, and we're going to have to end universal mail-in ballots, limited only to what the former absentee ballot system was, tightly controlled, paper ballots counted in public and witnessed in public. So I think that this plan is still in effect. You can see that John Solomon, the last few days, has been releasing information saying that intelligence reports exist that show that were suppressed in 2020 by the Democrats, saying that China had interfered in the election and was changing votes, and that information was known. It was known even to Rick Grinnell, who reported it after the January 9th events that occurred, and said that foreign nations did in fact penetrate our election. So the premise is there. If the Senate doesn't act, I think those senators who don't go along with it may ruin their careers. Certainly, this is one issue that Donald Trump is firm on. He said from the very beginning that our 2020 elections were stolen, and he was going to prove that they were stolen, and he was not going to let the midterm elections be stolen again. So I think Donald Trump is, and I've been interviewed on this, the story has been published. The mainstream media is ready to charge that Donald Trump wants to steal the election in 2026, the midterm, by imposing these new rules by dictum as commander-in-chief. I don't think there's anything that can prevent Donald Trump from doing it. I think Donald Trump is not about to see another election stolen. So that's the end game if the Senate does not pass the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act alone may not be enough, even if it is passed. But I believe Donald Trump is resolute on these not going to allow the 2026 midterm elections to be stolen without taking some strong executive action. And an executive order, I think, it's being prepared. I even saw today Tulsi Gabbard being questioned in Congress, and whether she or Kash Patel were aware of any memos circulating in the White House to prepare an executive order. They both said no, but that doesn't mean it wasn't happening, or that they may not intentionally know about memos that are circulating, talking about ways we can secure the election by the formula I just gave, proof of citizenship, a voter ID, an end to universal mail-in ballot, and tightly controlled mail-in ballot according to the absentee rules, and paper ballots counted in public. I think this is what Donald Trump's going to insist will be the 2026 election rules. And I believe that the plan that Peter Tickton shared with me based on our research, God's Five Stones with Andrew Paquette, these algorithms in the database, Peter Tickton outlined for me at the beginning of the second term that this was ultimately the plan. And it's playing out very much like it's always been described. Now the public information is coming out about Russia interfering in the election. We're seeing the FBI in Colorado, and I'm sorry, in Arizona and in Georgia. And I think we're going to get ample evidence of voter fraud in 2020, regardless of what the Senate does. Steve, I think that's a report, and I'm actually watching the steps play out much as they were described to me almost 2 years ago.
So give us a little bit background information on what do you think the SAVE Act is, because a lot of people listening on TV, they hear, our senators talking about it. And isn't it in the Constitution that no illegal citizens can vote?
Yes. In fact, and it's ridiculous that the Senate would block a piece of legislation which would affirm that principle. It's illegal, and the Democrats know what they've done. They tell illegals, well, you own a home, so therefore you can vote, or you have a driver's license, so therefore you can vote. And if these people illegal here try to go and get naturalized according to the rules, if they're research, they find they've compromised their position to get a naturalized citizenship because they've committed fraud in voting illegally. The Democrats don't care. I don't think the Democrats could win an election that was not rigged. And the Democrats are now fighting for keeping the rules that allow them to cheat in place so that they can win a majority in the House and Senate and make the last 2 years of President Trump's second term a replay of the impeachment efforts, the efforts to destroy President Trump's presidency. And I don't think this time around President Trump's going to allow it to happen.
So you are speaking with Peter a lot. Do you hear anything on Tina Peters? We always try to, on this program, talk about Tina. We're not going to ask everybody to call the governor because he said he's going to try to pardon her, or we've heard information. Have you heard any updated information?
Well, the updated information is that, the governor Tina Peters has already served more time than her sentence, that her crime would have required. And if you listen to the appeals court, the judges were extremely upset that Tina Peters had at most committed a misdemeanor, but yet the judge charged her with, gave her a felony sentence. And it was way out of line. The sentencing is completely messed up. And the appellate court made it pretty clear they were going to mandate the case back for reconsideration because Tina Peters' rights were severely hampered. And I believe that will play out in the courts. But again, the governor said that he wants to release Tina Peters. I think it could happen any day. But again, we do need to keep the pressure on. And Peter Tickton has done a remarkable job getting an appellate record, which I think makes it absolutely clear that it's unconstitutional for Tina Peters to be kept in prison.
Yeah, I will have a conference call with Peter here at 5 o'clock today after this thing, and we'll try to find some excellent information. Thank you for coming on again. We appreciate it. Next on, we're going to have Fanny Martavani check my vote. You want to unmute him or unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm unmuted now. I hope you can hear me, Steve. Good afternoon.
We can.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for having me on today. And I'm sure many people here don't even know who I am and why I'm involved with election integrity and why I founded checkmyvote.org back close in the heels of the 2020 November election. So my name is Fani Mantravadi. I am originally born in India, but came to this great country about 25 years ago to do some IT projects, because they wanted me to do some work with the programming and IT stuff. That was my skills, basically. So anyway, fast forward down to 2020, I was on the path to legal citizenship to become an American citizen. I was on a permanent residency, all through legal procedures. And I grew concerned that my path to legal citizenship may probably get into jeopardy if someone creates a ballot in my name, because I was hearing a whole lot of stories about ineligible people voting, and I never voted, obviously, because I was not a citizen. So I grew concerned, obtained the Michigan's voter rolls from making a FOIA request, and I looked for my name and the disposition of my voting history, of which there shouldn't be any, and there wasn't, thankfully. But obviously, word got around in the little communities I was working with, opposing COVID policies and all that stuff on the side, and they also wanted to check how their vote was recorded in the voting files of Michigan. So I kind of helped them out by kind of looking them up and telling them by word of mouth, And then soon I was handling too many requests like that in a day, decided to put a website together, checkmyvote.org, and I'd load voter rolls in there so people can put their address in there and check who's registered to vote from their address. And also they can check if they have voted, absentee or in person, etc. And we found out, like actually through the people that voted, the citizens of America, that they would say they voted in person, but their vote was recorded as absentee in the November 2020 election. And they would ask me why my site is showing wrong information. Well, I'm like, hey, no, it's not my information. It's just the state's information. So soon enough, obviously, we contacted the clerks and the SOS. Justin Benson is one of the most corrupt individuals ever. Soon enough, I got a letter from the Secretary of State saying they're not going to give me the method of voting data anymore because I'm causing too many problems. So anyway, fast forward to 2025, I just became a citizen, a naturalized American citizen. And, I'm so proud to have this naturalization certificate to be an American. And my personal experience 2 weeks ago was when I went to the township, my local township, to go register to vote. And it was appalling for me because the lady, very nice lady, by the way, she asked me for my driver's license, and I said, here it is. And then she looked at it and goes, okay, I'll be back. I'll register to vote and come back. And I said, hold on there, aren't you going to check my citizenship? I was so proud of that. I have this certificate with me. I took it with me. I took it to the office there, to the clerk's office. And she said, oh, I thought this driver's license, isn't it sufficient? I said, oh, no, it's not. I've had this driver's license for the past 20 years. And I'm driving here, and only now I became a citizen. And, you can have a driver's license without being a citizen. And she goes, I thought they checked that at the driver's DMV. And I said, yes, they do check that, whether you're a citizen or not. But being a citizen is not a prerequisite to drive on roads here. But being a citizen is an absolute prerequisite to vote, isn't it? And she seemed very honest, to me at least. She wasn't being sarcastic or anything. And she said, oh yeah, can you show me your certificate? And I gave her this, took the certificate out and gave it. And she was like, wow, I've never seen one of these. It was a beautiful experience for me anyway. She's looking at it and she said, I've never seen one of these naturalization certificates. I said, you should check from anybody who comes in to register to vote. You should, because you don't know whether they're a citizen or not if you don't check this, or a passport or something. If they're naturalized, if they don't look like they're from here or whatnot. But it was an interesting experience. I put out a Substack story, and also I put it on my X profile that became viral, just kind of spread all over the place. And I think this is a lapse in training. The Secretary of State, I'm not accusing this local clerk of any wrongdoing, she's misguided. The Secretary of State of Michigan has been issuing misleading guidances to local clerks and flat out just telling them, hey, just, check their driver's license. Well, that's not enough. So citizen awareness has kind of really outpaced clerks training here. So I think citizen awareness is so important. That's why I launched a Substack right in that same month. Right after that, I launched it right 2 weeks before that. But this was a good story that I put in my Substack. And, I think people need to know, and they also develop a relationship with your local township clerk. And we've been pushing this across the state of Michigan, Ohio, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Rhode Island, where Check My Vote is live right now. Thankfully, over the last 4 years of work, we've spread out and we've been doing great work across the states, rallying up people, checking registrations that are, to attach to cemeteries or ineligible places like businesses or RBs or, under the highway. We've seen those under the overpass, So the work that I do is involving mostly, building the tech platform that gives the tools that volunteers and people who are passionate about election integrity need at their disposal to be able to, have 4 arms, so to speak, instead of just 2, right? Because technology kind of can be used as a tool to help do work faster, be more efficient and effective at what you're trying to do, which is our motive is to restore accuracy to voter rolls by restoring faith in elections, restoring faith in elections by restoring accuracy to voter rolls. But it's my long story short, I'm continuing to do this work, and I'm really passionate about it. And check out my Substack, checkmyvote.substack.com. And I'm also on X as Deluxe Cipher, DELUXEPSYPHER. And also it's checkmyvote_org at X. So that's all I wanted to share today. And thank you very much.
Yeah, let us know what, with your product, what you have accomplished and what you're finding, because it's good to have a product and it's good to, check your vote. Let us know what you're finding. That's some of the most important thing.
Absolutely. Our results are all present on the Check My Vote website, it shows month by month reduction of, duplicate registrations. For example, in Michigan, we have gone down from 19,000 duplicates 1.5 years ago to 2,617 right now. If you go to checkmyvote.org and click Michigan there, and you click current metrics, you'll see a bunch of them. And we have DCs, ones we have reduced from DCs are a very difficult one to find, because it's a manual work. So we do obituaries and all this, but ultimately we have seen a steady decrease in the number of DCs registrations in the voter rolls. And we also have, there's a success story that published today in Check My Vote, where an individual found an obituary of a 90-plus-year-old person, went to the clerk and got it removed from the voter rolls. Although this may sound anecdotal, you can go to my website. Under the scorecard, you'll see graphs that show month after month what's going on. Is it trending up or trending down? All these anomalies. So built all these algorithms also to kind of track their success. And Substack is where my stories are going to be going out every week, success stories of what we've been doing, both magnitude of high numbers versus anecdotal small ground level examples. So please do follow my Substack, checkmyvote.substack.com.
Fantastic. So we're waiting for Mike Lindell to come on. We're going to give you some information. One of the things that I found, I just got this, I think it's very important. Let me know if everybody could see this. This is important. We're getting a lot of feedback on a lot of our channels. People are actually making a lot of information. But if you go to the New York Post, there's an article here that was sent to me just about a half an hour ago, and it says illegal immigrants from Africa, India, and China are voting in U.S. elections. Here's how they are doing it. And this is on March 16th. So if you go to the New York Post and look for this article, if you need to email me, and I'll be glad to get it for you, but put your phone number in there. If you email me at sstern1054@gmail.com, that's sstern1054@gmail.com, and we'll get you that information. And it's very important. I think this particular thing that they sent me is one of the best articles that I have seen in a long time. It's on the not on the main paper. It was on their website. So if you can't find it, I will be glad to send it to you. One of the most important things that are going to happen tomorrow is going to be our Precinct Project USA.org. If everybody goes to precinctprojectusa.org and signs up, we will have some of the top speakers in the United States on there. On the website, we have one person from every state that will answer questions for you. Tomorrow, we'll have about 6 speakers on from the states telling you how to get involved. We will be having manuals. Here's a manual we have in Fort Lauderdale, but I just received one from Tampa. That's fantastic. So our goal is to get 200,000 new precinct committee men and committee women. And why we're doing this is because we have 400,000 slots in the Republican Party, and we have 200,000 people involved. We cannot win elections with 200,000 people involved. We need 400,000 people. One of the ways that I found out how to get new people would be to ask every committee man and every committee woman in the United States to bring one person in. If you cannot bring one person into the Republican Party, it's pretty sad. So we can double our number of precinct committee men and women if we do that. Do you see Mike Lindell on yet? I'm not sure if he's on yet, but let's see. We'll continue with some information. If he's not, we'll bring somebody else on. He usually comes on at 3. Hang on one second. Let's see.
Yeah, Mike's on.
All right. Mike, you ready? One of my most famous guys, Mike Lindell, mypillow.com. Everything that's coming out now is exactly what Mike said with the machine.
Can you guys see me?
We can see you and hear you, and hopefully you
Okay,
win the
sorry.
championship. All
Yeah,
right, Mike,
sorry.
go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, isn't it great that it's been vindicated for 5 years? Everything that I came out with back then over the last 5 years, and we all have, all this stuff is coming out. Remember, last February, I turned in a booklet about 1.5 inches thick of everything we had consolidated over the last 5 years and gave that to the president, to the DOJ. So as this stuff pours out now to get vindicated, but to get us closer and closer to secure elections, with the SAVE Act, hopefully that gets passed. We got to keep praying for that. But all of these things, our ultimate goal obviously is paper ballots, hand counted, same day voting, precinct level, voter ID, and all these things we've been fighting for. It's kind of funny, everybody, as I'm running for governor, I got put on CBS Sunday Morning about a month and a half ago, and right away they started to attack me. They go, Mike, remember this in Minnesota, isn't My Pillow bankrupt? I said, no, who told you that? I mean, lies. We made it through it being the most attacked company in history because by our own government, which was Arctic Frost. So Mike Lindell would shut up about the elections, and which I never would, never will. And then their next question, she goes, well, Mike, didn't you lost $5 million on your evidence challenge? So $5 million you lost. And I said, no, Esme, you didn't do your homework. I said it was overturned by the 8th Circuit here in Minnesota. And I said that Mike was right. Mike was right, and he and his evidence, they overturned it and said Mike was right, his evidence is good. And she goes, well, I don't believe that. And then I showed her the article. I said, you did. And she played it live. So it was embarrassing that a journalist didn't do her homework. But anyway, I think when you talk about these midterms, as I'm running for governor, what I did just a week ago, everybody, for the last 2 months, I have been put in this position to get the GOP nomination, which I'm not honoring. I'm going to go right to the primaries. But the establishment, these establishment candidates that have been in there for 1.5 years, the one gal, she's been in it for 1.5 years, and we get up you get to talk for like 5 minutes. You spend your whole day going all over Minnesota to this event, and you get to talk for like 4 or 5 minutes, and she gets up there and says, 1.5 years ago, Speaker of the House, by the way, that's running for governor. 1.5 years ago, I did all this. I brought up this fraud prevention thing, and the Democrats didn't listen. Well, good for you. It happened under your watch. I don't care if you have a little R in front of your name. You should have shouted louder when we had $25 billion stolen from us, from all of us, federally, on the federal taxpayers and Minnesota. And so what I've done, everybody, and you're hearing it here first, a week ago I said, you know what, enough's enough. I'm going to win this race against Amy Klobuchar. I'm going all in, and I'm going to do 75 rallies in 100 days, all throughout Minnesota, very similar to a guy I know, which I went to over 150 rallies with our president. And the campaign is shifting. I'm going to go into these towns, and I'm going to be able to give a 2-hour thing of here's what I'm going to do, here's how I'm going to win. And I've got a pathway to win Minnesota. One of the things I'm going to do, everybody, imagine if you've seen an ad. Mike Lindell and Amy Klobuchar come to a historical agreement. You would all open it up, right? Because here's what it would say. In 2018 and 19, Amy Klobuchar was the loudest voice in this country to get rid of the electronic voting machines. You can all validate this by watching the movie Kill Chain. Amy Klobuchar, Kamala Harris, all the Democrats shouting from the rooftops, but especially Amy. She even named the machine companies and she didn't get sued. So here you have Mike Lindell and Amy agree on this. Well, what did Mike Lindell do since that day? Well, Mike Lindell spent $70 million, everything he had in the world, to go out and try and secure our election. And over the last 5 years, that's all done, poured money into this, and even with the lawfare and everything else. Well, what did Amy do during that time? She went silent on the fraud there, but yet she went out and solicited billions of dollars from the government to help for these welfare programs, these Somalian programs, and it's gone. So Amy didn't Amy's not a real good steward of money. So I'm looking forward to these debates or whatever it is with her, because this is the times we're in right now. And remember, we're coming up, these midterms are the most important right now elections in history. Everything could be in vain. We have to win nationwide. But I'll tell you, the fraud in Minnesota is the biggest blessing that Minnesota has had, could be one of the most important ever. We have been blue since 1972, the longest state where we've been blue in our presidential races. And but the fraud being a blessing, you all know I'm a very big optimist, and what a blessing it is, because now we can, we're looking and say all the eyes are on Minnesota on this fraud. And if you didn't have that, everyone from like in Minnesota, well, it's going to be blue anyway. Why even bother and vote? But this fraud is just like the 2020 election, which is one of the most important elections in history, because it revealed over the last 5 years all the stolen election and all the things we have to fix in that election. Just like this fraud is revealing everything we have to do to fix these programs to save Minnesota and nationwide. You're going to find out it's everywhere. These welfare programs, all these programs have been cost us trillions, not billions. I believe it's trillions. And now we get a chance to look into that. And by the way, you can say ban Sharia law without being a racist now. Isn't that nice? I mean, Minnesota's the Trojan horse for that. We've had to deal with this Sharia law they tried to put in. It doesn't go with our Constitution. It's horrific. And I've said this 5 years ago. I said, Minnesota's like a Trojan horse. And I was praying that this would come out. And so you cannot mix the two. And look what that's happening because of Minnesota. Nationwide now, you got all these things in Texas, up in Michigan. So you guys, we're in a good time to be alive with these blessings we're getting by these. Remember, God uses all things for good. And this is so important that we have, that all these things coming out. One of the things too, I wanted to tell you all, when you talk about Minnesota and ICE and all these things with, if we wanted to pull back, the president wanted to pull back ICE somewhat, they would have used this as a deflection as all these protests in Minnesota all the way through the election and took the eyes off the fraud. So now by doing this, the eyes are back on the fraud, me being in Minnesota. And what you're having now is the problems you're having downtown have been the protesters stopping locals and checking their ID to make sure they're not ICE to get to their own homes. Isn't that ironic? And but anyway, when you talk, it's such an easy fix with the illegals. Is like in Minnesota, we have 1,400 illegals that have committed murder, rapists, pedophiles. They're in our prisons. We pay $85,000 a year to house them. So Minnesota taxpayers are paying $110 million a year for just those. That's the criminals. Now every illegal, you guys, I want to tell you all this. This is another thing. Illegals eventually commit a crime. Usually it's driving without a license or some misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor. They get brought into the county jails, and when they get there, they've committed 2 crimes, whatever this crime is, and being here illegally. So if you include them, you just call up and say, here, we got a whole bunch for you. Take them, get them out of here, deport them, bring them back to their countries to do their time there, and then you don't have to go door to door. And that's what many other cities have done. Washington, D.C., Memphis, many others. So if you cooperate, it's a win-win-win. But anyway, that's good. It's my update. I'm doing very good. I'm polling #1 for Minnesota governor with the people, not the little GOP polls they do. With the people, I'm #1, and it's going to keep going up and up. And with everybody, it's MikeLindellGov.com, everybody, too, if you want to check it out, MikeLindellGov.com. And so there's kind of an update. As far as the Save America and Save It Act, we've got to get that pushed through. That's like the president said when I talked to him and I, since we've said since the summer, for longer than that, there is nothing more important than our election platforms. Nothing, not one single thing, even going on now. If you don't secure our elections, if we don't secure them, and you all know that, if we don't, this will be just a moment in history where we had a door to walk through and to save our country and everything, but it got slammed shut because we didn't secure our elections and they stole them. Maybe it'll take these midterms where they do steal it, and then finally everybody will demand, hey, open up these machines, open up this, and we get to the bottom of it. Maybe that's what it'll take. But either way, it's we're winning on every level. I really believe that, and everybody's efforts out there, Steve, with the everything we've done for the last 5 years now, that's and the stuff that keeps pouring out, and this wasn't going to happen overnight. I still haven't learned patience, but I've been forced to, and it's all been on God's timing here, and I really believe we're going to get there, and it's going to be amazing.
So on the War Room, you said that you're moving your warehouse. How about telling our people you may have some specials that you want to do for this program?
Yeah, you guys, we are moving our factory. We actually had the people before, they bought a year and a half ago. We have a big lease, 400,000 square foot factory. They're a very woke company. We don't even need to get into that. I had to get out when it gets good. We got a brand new factory. We've been moving for the last 4 weeks. And during those 4 weeks, we have all this stuff that we don't want to move twice. So what I'm going to do for all of you, you guys can use promo code Mike. You get free shipping on these mattresses, mattress toppers, as low as $99.98. You guys go there, get these with the mattresses, and get 2 free pillowcases, plus the lowest price ever, plus free shipping right to your front door. We don't want to move them twice. We want to move them now. So this week, if you get them now, and by the way, we have our product lines, our clothing lines that we had couch pillows, but this huge clothing line, all this stuff was earmarked for retail, which remember shut us down, they canceled. So all this huge inventory, we marked down to 80% off, and which our employees, they're grabbing too. This is lower than our normal employee discount. You guys, we don't want to move it. We want it to get, you guys can benefit, use that promo code Mike, and go on there, get free shipping on your entire order. Everything's free, right to your front door. And then plus we also, this was right in the middle, Steve, of our second annual mega sale, everybody. So the mega sale is our 4 flagship products, our sheets, our Giza Dream sheets, as low as $29.98. Then you have our towel set, 6-piece towel set, lowest price in history, $34.98. The best towels ever, they actually work. Then you have our pillows, the famous My Pillows, the standard size is $14.98. And then you have our mattress toppers, which I just told you. So go there, do all your shopping now. You're never going to get a lower price, a bigger special. Use my promo code Mike and get the free shipping today right to your front door. You'll be helped. It'll be a win-win-win-win, helping everything that I'm doing. Remember, everybody, I was not going to run for governor until my pillow was secure. I told the president that last August. I said, sir, I'm really thinking serious of running for governor of Minnesota, but my wife and I are going to pray about it. But my pillow has to be secure. It's been the most attacked company in history, and we got a little bit past Thanksgiving where, you know what, I can let them go and go 100% all in to what right now the next most important thing, winning governor of Minnesota. So you guys have all been your support over the last 5 years and everything, supporting my pillow has got us to this point by the grace of God and all of you support. So we can help each other one more time. Get all these products today. Promo code Mike, free shipping right to your front door, so we don't have to move it to the other factory.
What phone number can they use to call in?
Yeah, let me get that. I'm sorry, I didn't. You can call. Hold on, everybody. We're getting there. You would call 800-544-8939. That's 800-544-8939. And you know what? They speak English. This is my own call center. These are all these employees that I have. We're an employee-owned company. they have endured the last 3 years of the biggest attacks. So they love talking to you all. Tell them promo code Mike. Tell them you just heard the great special. And I just want to thank you all again for your support. We would not have made it this far without everybody still supporting My Pillow to get us through, and also with God willing. So, but anyway, that's what you can do. So
Thank you very much, Mike. We appreciate it. And
thanks,
if anybody
Stephen.
wants to donate to you, what is it? How do they go? Where do
Yeah,
they go?
that's the, you guys, that's, you can, if you remember this, mygovernor.com or MikeLindellGov.com. We will win this. I have to have the resources to do it. Like I say, we're announcing 75 rallies starting on April 8th in 100 days. We need the support. Even if I had money in Minnesota, you can't put into your own campaign, so you can't buy your way in, so to speak. So you rely on micro donors, and that's which is great. I think you guys will be the buzz. I promise you. You help support me, even if it's $5, $10, whatever it can be. I think the max is $4,000. If you guys could do that, I promise you, I will work 18 hours a day and do, God willing, win this race. I will do everything possible to win. Your money will be the most well spent ever for that, I believe, because I believe it's one of the most important elections in history.
Thanks very much, Mike. We appreciate you coming.
Thanks for having me on, Steve. Thank you, everybody. God bless.
Okay, our next speaker will be Jay Delancey, Voter Integrity Project. Want to unmute him?
Jay, you're muted. Come on down.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. And so good to follow Mike Lindell. It's been a while, and I so appreciate what he's done. And thank you for having me. We're a North Carolina-based organization. And I was at the legislature or at the Board of Elections today, because currently what we're working on the state through agency rules. And by the way, in many states, private citizens can introduce suggested agency rules to follow for the agency. It's something that we as activists have rarely done, but we're learning to do that. What they're working on is implementation language for the SAVE Act. If and when it passes, the state is going to have some ways to handle non-citizens. And the way I got involved in my activities was through finding non-citizens on the voter roll. And the way we did it, I've written a book about it. I'll plug the book here in a minute. But the way we found them was by contacting the courts, administrators, and finding out. In North Carolina, they call them the clerks of court, and these are elected officials, and they manage the courts, as you can imagine. So anytime people are getting out of jury duty, there is a reason they get out of jury duty. And some of them are germane to voting. For example, I don't live in your county anymore, or I'm not a U.S. citizen. And we thought it'd be a small amount, but we asked one county for 3 years worth of their non-citizen excusals, and there were 6,000 people who'd gotten out of jury duty based on citizenship. So you got to ask yourself, 6,000 people got off the jury list by telling the court and proving to the court they were not U.S. citizens. How'd they get on that list in the first place? And the answer is, there's two answers. Either they got a driver's license fraudulently, or they got or they registered to vote. So we started looking at those names very carefully, and filed voter challenges against them. And under our state law, and I'm sure yours too, there's a way you can actually challenge the right of someone else to vote. It's just, it's down in the weeds in your election law, but generally it comes from common law, I believe, that, this guy is not allowed to vote, and you're telling on him basically. But it's a legal proceeding or quasi-judicial proceeding where the board, instead of you going to court with it, you're actually being taken up by an election oversight board, whatever they call it in your county or your jurisdiction. So anyway, we went through that and got beat up pretty badly through it, I have to admit. But we learned a lot about how the system works. And I started documenting it, and I wrote a book about it because I'm going to plug the book. You'll love the cover. It's called Aliens Among Us. And you can kind of see right there what's going on here. This with the I Voted sticker, the alien with the I Voted sticker. If you go to Amazon and use my name, you'll find it. If you just use the title of the book, you'll find a whole bunch of books about UFOs. But if you look for my name, it's Jay Delancey. you'll find it quickly. But it goes through how we found them and other ways we found them. You can find them. Other ways are more difficult, but they're very findable depending. Question, were they registered to vote? Okay, we found 6,000 that were on the list for that 3-year snapshot. Of those, about 500 were actually registered to vote, and about half of those were voting. So, but we had a very small sample. It was one county, and it was just 3 years worth of data. And I kicked myself for not asking for 10 years worth of data, but it is what it is. We got the 3 years. We went through our proceeding, and then the state pushed back. And because we embarrassed the ever living daylights out of them by the fact that we found these people on their voter roll and they should have found them. So I met lawmakers that were in oversight of the one in particular, a lawmaker who was really annoyed in a good way. He was annoyed by what we found, and he started sponsoring bills for us because the court system suddenly decided that that information we'd gotten was not public information, and it should never have been given to us in the first place. So we could sue them, but unfortunately they were their chief, the head of their agency is the Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court. So it's kind of hard to sue that agency and find a lawyer who would do it. So we kind of gave up on that and went the legislative route. It took us 10 years, and we were a veto-proof Republican majority state with a Republican governor for the first 4 years and could not get the bill passed. So what we learned is there's a governing, I didn't know what it was. I thought ideologically these people were beholden to the United States Chamber of Commerce, which is headquartered in North Carolina. And that's what it was. It's kind of a globalist that crosses party lines. But that's not what the book's about. The book is about how you can do this in your state, where to look. Examples are the clerks of court, of course, people getting out of jury duty. Another example is the Register of Deeds. This is a little harder, so you'd have to talk to the people who work in the deeds office, and they are, because what they are actually doing, sorry, I'm looking down at these chats. I don't know whether I should be looking at them to answer them or not, but what the Register of Deeds is supposed to be doing, and what they do is they have people who are getting, they are going in for transactions, like you've heard of citizen birthright, this thing that's been up in the news, birther babies or whatever. These people are going and getting birth certificates, and they're walking in to get the birth certificates where? At your local Register of Deeds. Maybe it's a different name. The clerk, some states call it the county clerk, but they're writing these birth certificates, and they're using foreign IDs to get their birth certificate. So this, if you have a Register of Deeds who cares about that issue, and this is where you can actually talk to them, and I actually show you the questions you can ask them to get to that point. But if you, this is a way of pushing lawmakers, pushing your clerks of court, pushing your Register of Deeds, and your Secretary of State. I don't know about your state, but whatever state grants notary public licenses, they are, in many states, we've discovered in our state, in violation of our state's law, our Secretary of State was and still is issuing notary publics to illegal immigrants. So think about that. These are not just non-citizens here on a student visa. These are people who have orders for deportation. Many of them are dreamers, deferred action for childhood arrival. And we explain the difference there. Those are still illegal immigrants, and they're not legal, but they are illegal in the sense of they're not supposed to be here. But the order that Obama signed for that was to have them last, to prosecute them last. It was just an executive order to his agency to get them last, because these are people that came over here. They're not U.S. citizens. They were not born here, but they're the children of U.S. citizens, and now they're adults. And they are working, and they get these cards that allow them to get a work permit. And we found our Secretary of State was actually granting notary publics based on the work permits, which is against state and federal law. You're supposed to have it as the either a green card or actual passport citizenship. So it's now there's talk, the SAVE database and all that will work. And yes, it's true, the SAVE database may solve these problems. The question is, who is looking over the shoulders of your election officials who are actually doing the work? And what we found, our first claim to fame in 2012, way back then, if you Google it, you'll see group finds 30,000 dead voters in North Carolina. That was us. And it was my team. We got on and actually got on, there's a YouTube on it that I posted. I got interviewed on Fox and Friends for that. You know, wow, what do we do? Did we change anything? Not really. We embarrassed the election officials, but it got us on the map. And the things like non-citizen voting and the other things we've worked on, like interstate double voting, those, and yeah, that has resulted in criminal prosecutions. So that's really what we're on about, not as much getting headlines as much as making stuff happen. So today we were trying to tighten up. We have a voter ID exception in North Carolina where you just sign a form. It says, I swear on a stack of Bibles. I put my right hand up and I say, I swear my name is Steve Stern and I can't find my ID. The problem with that is I'm not Steve Stern. And, but if I sign that affidavit, it's under penalty of perjury, but no one knows who I am because it doesn't even require a social security number or driver's license number on that form. And so we're currently working to try and get them to beef up that form and put those things on it. It's just silly. So I've talked a lot. Please, my social media.
Thank you.
Yeah, following Steve Stern's great model there. This is my my Twitter and this is my Substack. That's our current article there. I am Vote Checker. So check it out. And thank you, Steve.
Jay, you're quite welcome. Next up is Greg Stenstrom, our famous guest who always is there for me.
I'm here. How you doing?
We see you.
So
No flag shirt.
today I'm gonna do something a little different. As most people here know, that we've been going after election fraud and elections basically through litigation for the last 6 years. And we've learned a lot over the past 6 years. I think early on in 2020 and 2021, the cases that were brought before the court, particularly by President Trump, is, if you recall, of the 98 cases that were brought by Trump and close affiliates of Trump, the cases were dismissed for lack of jurisdiction, lack of standing, lack of cause, inability to prove fraud, and they used procedural methods, procedural means to quash these cases. But it's been a learning process. So I want to just discuss today and give like a short lesson on the cases that we're now using to go after election fraud. So the first thing that we've done is we've removed the word fraud from our court cases, because to prove election fraud or to bring election fraud, you have to get to the point where you can present evidence. If you can't get by the procedural standing issues or the procedural issues, you'll never get to the merits. Now, one place where we did get to produce the merits were in the defamation cases that were brought against President Trump, Rudy Giuliani, myself, Leah Hoops, and others, Emerald Robinson. There were multiple cases, OAN, Newsmax. There were multiple defamation cases where we applied pro se, meaning we represented ourselves. Truth is a complete defense. Now, in those cases, we were able to provide the evidence that we had of election fraud, and we were exonerated. We've won all of our defamation cases, and we're about to win our malicious prosecution case, primarily through truth is a complete defense. So we know that if we can get to the merits, we can prove election fraud. So there's certain cases that I wanted to bring up, and if people have notes, and I'm going to be very brief, but the core cases that we're using now is what we're saying now is, if you don't comply with statute, if you don't comply with case law, particularly statute, then you cannot, if we can get them to stop breaking the law and have the courts interpret the law as opposed to corrupt or compromised election directors and public officials who have interpreted the election laws to favor fraud, then we can make some progress. So the first one is Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo, 2024. And that's an important case. And it was done in 2024. And the case says that courts must interpret statutes independently. There is no automatic deference to agency interpretation. So if an agency or a county election director says, well, I interpret the law and the statute this way, then what we don't say is we don't say you're committing fraud. We say you're not compliant with the statute. And then there's an argument that pursues and goes back and forth. But when you quote Loper Bright Enterprises, what we say is it's the duty of the court. The court is the primary authority that must interpret the statute. And the statutes are very clear. So if we put that into the hands of the courts, they will interpret the statutes for us. So we have a number of cases currently before the court. We have a important case. If I have the time, I'll bring it up, and I'll bring up some pictures that we submitted to the court of destroyed records. But we're using Loper Bright to say to the court, we want you to rule and say that machines have to be certified. Election machines have to be certified. Currently, not a single election machine in the state of Pennsylvania and most of the country is certified. We have proven that there's malicious code on 100% of the machines in Pennsylvania. But the fraud argument, we were able to get to the federal court, and the ruling was, even though they admitted that the machines weren't tested and they admitted there was malicious code on the machines, and most people don't know about this case. It was Rob Mancini case. I was a co-plaintiff with Rob Mancini and several others, that the court said it was speculative that fraud would occur. So what we really needed to do was, even though we quote unquote got to the point where they admitted that the test machines weren't tested, we couldn't do anything about it. We've changed that, and we're using Loper Bright to get them to test the machines and only use certified code. Another important case is the SEC versus Jarkissi. That's 2024. And that holding is agencies cannot bypass statutory and constitutional constraints through internal procedures. So federal agencies like the FBI or the DOJ that say, well, we're not going to investigate the election fraud because we have a policy that we're not going to do that. That's not what the law says. They have a statutory and a constitutional requirement to investigate fraud. So we've used SEC versus Jarkissi to say you must investigate. And we've asked the courts to interpret that and demand that investigations happen. We've also used that along with Loper Bright to say that they cannot use procedures, and particularly one of them is mail-in ballots. The law requires a strict chain of custody that's auditable. There is no situation in the country where mail-in ballots fit that criteria. In fact, it's against the law. If you look at HAVA and NVRA, and you look at the other laws that are, it's 52 USC. If you look at the law carefully, mail-in ballots aren't authorized at all. And what they did, the states said, well, we can run elections any way we want. That may be true in an election that's not a federal election, but in a federal election, strict auditability is required, and they can't provide that. So that argument is currently before the court as well. Are mail-in ballots allowed or not? And if they are allowed, then we want a complete auditable record of those mail-in ballots. They can't do that because they can't win without injecting fraudulent mail-in ballots into the system. Next case is Luzon versus Defenders of Wildlife, which is a 1992 case. One of the problems we've had is getting by standing. Scalia, in particular, the court decided on standing. Standing requires concrete injury, causation, and redressability. So basically, the application is your injury is the inability to verify statutory compliance with election law. The redressability is that the court can interpret that statutory compliance. You don't have to take an election official in some counties saying, well, this is the way we do things and this is the way we've interpreted the law. I'm not going to say that there's fraud there. I'm going to say you're not in compliance, and only the court can decide if you're in compliance or not you. Another case that ties these things together is Spokio Inc. versus Robbins, 2016. Basically holds that a statutory violation itself can be a concrete injury if it affects a legally protected interest. So the failure to comply with election statutes equals a concrete procedural injury. We do not need to prove fraud. We just need to show that the procedures that they're using, okay, do not comply with law. And I'm just going to read through the cases. I'm watching the time here, but the next case is TransUnion LLC versus Ramirez. Only plaintiffs with concrete harm may recover, but statutory violations can create real injury when tied to protected rights. Violation of election record and certificate statutes, and this is particularly in the certification of elections, affects fundamental voting rights. That reinforces Spokio, and those cases together allow us to challenge illegal certifications or uncertified and challenge the certification of the votes. And I've got a few more here. Steve, I got another 2 minutes.
1 minute.
We've got Arizona versus Intertribal Council. Okay, federal election law preempts state procedures that conflict with federal requirements. Bush v. Gore, election procedures must be applied uniformly. And I'm going to go down to HAVA, the Help America Vote Act. Voting systems must be auditable and verifiable. So I know with only a few minutes left, what I wanted to do is if you fit these all together, these are the cases, and this is the approach we're taking now in our litigation. Our litigation has been shaped by our losses. So we've learned over the past 5 years, and our core focus is on 2026. There's a couple of other cases, but the key thing now is that they've used the black box argument. We have no visibility into the election process and centralized counting centers. But what we do have, and Harry Howard is on first today, and Unite for Freedom has the metrics that they show an input and an output that doesn't match. In Delaware County, we have a mismatch, and we have 12,000 votes that can't be connected to mail-in ballot applications. So using the cases I just cited and a couple of other cases, what we say now to the court is, here's the input, here's the output. I'm not going to argue the black box, but something happened in that black box. So we have a right, and the burden of proof shifts. We don't have to prove fraud. They must prove that they ran an honest election. So by learning this over the past 6 years, we are succeeding in our litigation at this point, and we're presenting binary decisions to the courts that the courts can make and enforce honest elections. Now, you can reach me at patriot.online/@Greg Stenstrom, Gregory Stenstrom, patriot.online. I posted my X. You can reach me at gregorystenstrom@gmail.com. And I encourage people to do so. I will try to help as much as I can. I do get a lot of requests, and I apologize in advance to people I can't get back to. But if you follow our cases and you follow what we're doing, I think you're going to see success in the upcoming May primary and the November 2026 elections, which are critical to the future of our country. And lastly, I'll say this: no matter what happens in litigation, what it's going to come down to at the end is President Trump. President Trump is most likely going to have to put an executive order in to secure our elections. And the cases that we're doing will provide him a bedrock or will provide him a basis to give those executive orders. So thank you all for being here. Steve, as always, thank you for your platform and your forum. I just wanted to do something a little different today. We're doing well with our cases, and I release the mic. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks very much, Greg. Okay, so one of the most important things is we are getting tremendous amount of feedback. There's no way I can answer all that, but if you will go to sstern1054@gmail.com, watch that, sstern1054@gmail.com, and email me questions. I will be glad to try to answer them in the next few days after our precinct project Zoom tomorrow, which takes a lot of time. There's no way I can be on there. I have my assistants trying to answer some of them. So do that. I want to thank everybody for getting their 250 shirts. We got a lot of people have bought shirts. Thank you very much. A lot of War Room people on here today. So thank you. Our next speaker will be Daniel Richards from New Hampshire. We try to get people on from states that we don't have before. He's got one of the only cases that from the 2020 election for fraud. Daniel, you want to unmute? Can you unmute him, Anthony?
How's that? Steve, can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here today. As you indicated, I've been told, I don't know it's a fact. If I'm wrong, please forgive me, but believe I'm the only remaining case left open from the 2020 election challenging Trump's loss in 2020 here in New Hampshire. I was able to successfully argue at the state Supreme Court to establish standing over the substance of my election law complaint. And my case is made up fundamentally of the same issues that are now part of the SAVE Act. Virtually all the components of it, plus several more. And so the backstory on my case, it's a singular case. It begins in the state trial court. I filed a complaint with the state Superior Court, which is in New Hampshire, our trial court. Our Supreme Court is an appellate court. And in that proceeding, in all future proceedings, both the state Superior and Supreme Courts all ignored all the federal precedent that was binding upon them, all of it. And so by using procedure, they just mucked around for 4 years. And January 13th, finally, the state Supreme Court upheld the lower court ruling and leading me to the next step of appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court. That filing will go out hopefully next week. It's just about done. I've got till the 13th of next month to get it in, but I want to get it in right away. I'm hoping that it'll give the Supreme Court an immediate answer to all the underlying issues that are part of the SAVE Act. And I'll briefly, for your audience, cover what my arguments are in my case. In New Hampshire, and I think across the union, we saw a lot of these cases, as your last guest was just talking about, that the defendants kept, or the aggrieved parties kept trying to establish standing and or have to be heard to get to the merits of their arguments, and case by case by case they kept losing. And so I brought my case based on violating the 14th Amendment Due Process Clause and the Equal Protection Clause. And I basically pointed out that the state legislature has modified our election processes without the amendment process. Here in New Hampshire, that's a critical element. And I'm going to explain to your audience in a few minutes the Moore v. Harper decision and why that's so important to my case. But fundamentally, what I uncovered was in 1979, the state legislature started doing something it had no authority to do, which is to create mail-in voting by statute. See, prior to World War II in 1942, the state legislature had asked our state Supreme Court right after the Civil War, can the legislature establish absentee voting by statute? And the Supreme Court said, no, you have no authority. Voting requires in-person attendance. 50 years later, same questions, same answers, same actors. Supreme Court reaffirmed the fact that the legislature has no authority to create voting for any exemption whatsoever other than that which the people themselves have established in their state constitution. Remember, elections in all 50 states are bound by the federal elections clause when dealing with federal elections, but there's a concurrent jurisdiction there for state and federal. But in this case, because it involved federal elections, I invoked those protections. And either way, they expanded absentee voting for religious exemptions. But when they did that, they had to modify the absentee voting envelope, because in 1942, they created absentee voting for two specific exemptions dealing with World War II. Those who were deployed for the war and those who were in support of the war. So you were either physically absent from your polling district on election day, or you're physically disabled and with a doctor's note via affidavit. Those were created by an amendment to the state constitution, proving my point that the legislature can't do this on its own. So from that point, I turned around and also exposed that they were modifying the absentee voting envelope, which had an affidavit certificate on the envelope. This leads to a tremendous amount of fraud. So what they did is they had a choice. Because there are two constitutional exemptions, absence or disability, there was the affidavit certificate was the third item on the return envelope. Well, they removed the notary certificate and inserted in its place a new absentee voting exemption for a religious exemption, that which the legislature cannot do. And kept, since 1979, they've been counting all our absentee ballots, calling them an affidavit instrument, when in fact it can't be a lawful affidavit because there's no ID check, there's no verification of who the voter is. And so they've been playing this game and hustling the voters of New Hampshire ever since. In 2020, this led to the counting of 260,217 unverified absentee ballots. And as most people who have tried to prove fraud in these election cases have discovered, pinning down an exact number of how much the vote was diluted is a big deal. And so I was able to do that in my case. So I pointed that out as the harm that was done to me as part of my complaint. The next thing that they did is they put in voting machines on a temporary basis. So currently we have approximately 135 communities in this small state that use machines, and we have 103 that don't. Well, that's not equal. How is that fair? Especially when the towns using machines are using the machines to hide the counting of unverified absentee ballots. We'll get to that in a minute. But this whole process is all part of my case. And so they put these mechanisms, this whole scheme in place, and they follow that up with changing the requirements and expanding absentee voting. For example, my boss won't let me off of work on that day. The National Weather Service has forecasted bad weather. I have children that I have to care for, and I can't get there because of my babysitting duties, or I have an elder parent. All of these are expansion of mail-in voting, not authorized by our state constitution. And then finally, citizenship, requiring that you have to be a qualified voter pursuant to the definition of the Constitution, not an arbitrary expansion by statute, granting resident aliens. Being a small state, our universities are all left-leaning here in New Hampshire, and that we've had a terrible influx with same-day voters. By not addressing the citizenship requirement, we've been allowing these people to show up in a hotel, register that same day voting rules, and then they vote and they leave the state. And it's had a major effect of turning a Republican state into one that's purple now. And so we have a big problem with this. All of this is going to is now coming to a head to the U.S. Supreme Court. In 2023, there was a landmark case that came down called Moore v. Harper. It's my opinion that had Moore v. Harper been decided before the 2020 election, we would have had a different result in a great many states, and here's why. The Supreme Court of the United States upheld a redistricting case from North Carolina, and then the state was trying to exercise what's called independent legislative theory, because Article 1, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution delegates specifically to the state legislatures the responsibility to establish the time, the place, and the manner of conducting federal elections, that they are not constrained or regulated by the state or federal constitution. And the U.S. Supreme Court have said, of course, that's ridiculous, that the state legislature is still bound by the document that gives it its very life, its very existence is dependent upon the state constitution. It cannot pass any election laws that are not in compliance with the restrictions and regulations of the state constitution. And so what Moore v. Harper said was, we're not going to tell any of the states in the United States how to do their job. But what we are going to require of them is to ensure that the federal constitution and federal election laws are in fact in harmony with their own state constitution. And if they don't, then the U.S. Supreme Court has a duty to intervene and ensure that the federal constitution and federal laws were in fact given proper judicial scrutiny. And that's basically the makeup of my case. It should go out next week. I'm hoping that the timing is spot on. I had no idea I would be in such a unique position at this time in American history to have a case front loaded. I mean, this case is perfect to carry forward. And I'd add one more thing. My case argues 6 major U.S. Supreme Court precedents that this court is not going to overturn. Moore v. Harper, Smiley v. Home, Baker v. Carr, the U.S. redistricting versus Thornton. All of these cases are not, the court is not going to overturn. Now, they may not take my case, but I think they will. And specifically because there have been other decisions throughout the United States splitting some of the lower federal courts. For me, my case is different because it's strictly a state case that went through the state process and never touched a federal court. But under the rules of the U.S. Supreme Court, your next appeal after the highest court in the state has rendered its opinion is a direct trip to the U.S. Supreme Court. So that's why this case, I think, is going to get heard. It's prescient with all the nonstop conversation every day about the SAVE Act, the SAVE Act, the SAVE Act. Well, this case is now going to give the Supreme Court of the United States an opportunity to resolve this issue right now.
Thank you very much. We ran out of time.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. Our next guest, my good friend, and I think one of the most important people to speak today is Sam Anthony, yournews.com. Sam, unmute.
I'm unmuted, Steve. Thanks for inviting me on, guys. And Steve invites me on all the time, and I keep saying to him, what do I have to do with what you guys are doing? He says, you got everything to do it because you're the media. So I want to kind of share with you what we do. And for those of you that think it would be beneficial for yourselves, you guys can always join us in what we're doing. I run a platform. It's a hyper-local news platform called Your News. Steve talks about it all the time. We do local news in every city in the United States. We're a platform. So we currently have a little more than 5,700 news reporters, and we're growing daily. Ultimately, and I don't think anybody on this Zoom call would argue this, the reason we're in the mess we're in today is because of the legacy media, because they've been lying to us and not telling us the truth. So ultimately, the legacy media is going to not survive, and not because they've been lying, but it's simply because of the internet, the fact that there's more options out there. YouTube has 61 million active channels. God knows how many there are on Instagram and TikTok. So the point is, the younger generation doesn't watch Fox or CNN or ABC. Everything they get is off the internet. What we are is a platform that allows public participation. In essence, we're a citizen-powered press. We could serve news to a city, a county, a market, state, regional, or national. I figured rather than me explaining it to you, I can show you. So I had texted Steve asking him if we could share a screen. So I'm going to try and share my screen right now, which it looks like it's going to work. Can everybody see what I'm looking at, or is there anybody that can't see it, since I saw Steve walk away? So if you can't see it, let me know. But you're okay, so you can see it. So I don't live in Phoenix. It just happened to be the last place I was. So when you log in, we geolocate you. So our system is going to look like any news website. We just have massive scale. We're in every city in the United States. And so we not only do national news, and when I mouse over national news, here's all your topics, and anybody can do that. We do local news. So top stories would be like the front page of local. This is going to be Arizona Attorney General. This is all Arizona news, but it comes from boots on the ground. People, I'm looking to see like if there's the gentleman out there, Jonathan, that I don't see him in here on the front page. Maybe this is him. But this is all local news, but it all comes from boots on the ground. I'm going to bounce to a couple different places. This is going to be Chicago, and it's going to look the same because this is a national news story on our front page. Notice the ads could be different, but then when I do local top stories, this is going to be news that's going to be local news for the city of Chicago. All of this right here. It's all Chicago-based news. Whereas if I went to, I'll do another city, and I think this is Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Right here, you're going to see completely different news. So the national's the same, but all this is local news provided by what we call citizen journalists. So ultimately, the legacy media is not going to survive. What will replace it will be a citizen-powered press, a hyper-local news platform that can distribute news to a city, a county, a market, state, regional, or national, along with a monetization model where the content creators can submit their work and freely without censorship, and they can share in the ad revenue, and a self-service ad platform where somebody can buy an ad and target it to one zip code or anywhere in between. This is what I do is inevitable, but here's the reason I'm explaining this to you is because ultimately you don't want the institutional money to be able to control. I mean, we're talking the BlackRocks and the Vanguards, right? Because they're controlling everything. Years ago, and don't ask me what year it was, I think it was Clinton that opened up the gates for people to acquire all the media properties and gain huge power from it, because it's easier to control 6 people which are the institutions than it is to control the 500 independents that used to own those digital or those properties. Like you could own the Fox News affiliate in Chicago, while I could own the one in Palm Beach, while somebody else could own it. It's all been consolidated. Everybody's seen the Sinclair Broadcasting where those 40 or 50 TVs were saying at the same thing at the same time. That's all centralized news. So what we do is we completely decentralize the news business and we democratize who gets to say it. In essence, we put the power of the press back in the hands of the people where it belongs. I shared with you, I think we have around 5,750 news reporters. We will expand this and grow it. My goal by the end of the year is to get to roughly 20,000. There's 20,000 cities in the United States. And by the way, guys, look at all these different topics. We have people that do not only like it could be political news, but we have people that do Formula One, like in auto racing. I have a guy named Derek that does strictly Formula One. What did I hit? Hockey here. I have somebody that does strictly, auto racing news. That's all he does. Whereas some people do, I have people that do movie reviews, theater critics. I have people that do restaurant reviews. So it's all local news powered by local people. And for anybody that is interested in broadening their reach or reporting local news, like for example, somebody could be reporting on what's happening in their state or in their district. We could serve news right down to a specific city if we need to. So what I'm going to do, we have a Become a Citizen Journalist right here at the bottom of the page, where you can fill out this application here, and once approved, you become a local news reporter. Everybody's familiar with Nick Shirley. That story he broke was local in Minneapolis. It just gained national attention. Guys, I have hundreds of local stories that are big in their markets, but they're not national news. I think Mark Fincham broke the only thing that really made national news. It was he's the senator out of Arizona, but it was the story about the feds raiding the police chief's not only home, but his office and taking all their computers out. That was a story that was broke on your news. So what I'm going to do is share this in the, let me stop sharing. I'm going to share this in the message for anybody that wants to become a news reporter. And all you would do is click that link. There's a couple videos. If you're interested in becoming a citizen reporter in your local area, fill out that application. Once you get approved, you can start reporting news in your community. Steve,
How did they
anything?
get your app? How did they get your app?
Oh, okay. So on the app, just for everyone to know, we got kicked off the app stores, and the reason was both Apple and Android. And the reason was the content contradicted Fauci. That was the reason. So the way you get our app would be you go on your phone and hit your browser, type in yournews.com, you'll see install, and you can just click install and do it. Or at the bottom, and I'll just show everybody this, it's easy to do. At the bottom of your news, you'll see an ad. Let me make sure it's here. Hold on. That has one of these QR codes, and you can just click that and it'll install it or follow the instructions when you do it. But that's how you get the app. And let me stop sharing here. And I'm not sure if anybody has any questions, but if you do, you feel
There's
free
no
to.
questions, but if somebody wanted to invest in yournews.com, how would they do that? I have to admit that I'm an investor. I was one of your first investors because I really believe in yournews.com. I always promote it on every show I'm on. Sam and I speak 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week because they're always writing articles about me. So I got to make sure they're good before they put them up. So if people want to invest, how do they do that?
Again, you go to your news, go to the bottom, it says invest, and we're doing something called an equity crowd fund, which allows anybody to make an investment. You can spend $200 and anywhere in between. It's pre-IPO. The game plan is to get this north of 50,000 content creators before we start the process of taking it public. So this is kind of like buying Facebook or eBay pre-IPO before it went public. And my guess is it'll take between month 24 and 36 to get it there.
So Sam is on many, many podcasts, and we share a lot of podcasters. So many of the people that are podcasting today has been on the show. What is the most important thing that you can say about yournews.com?
You're asking me what it is?
I'm asking you.
I'm going to tell you. As I said before, the reason we're in the mess we're in today is because of the mainstream media. There's zero chance they survive. I don't give them more than 5 years. They'll be gone. What'll replace it will be exactly what we do, a hyper-local news platform that's a completely decentralized news platform that allows for free speech, and it allows the public to interact and share in the narrative and completely decentralizes the news business. The reason this is important is because you're eliminating all the mainstream media and basically state-controlled press. It's all of a sudden going to a people-powered press, which means once you start shedding light on all these crimes, eventually it'll all go away. And that's why it's important. You need it. This is the way it's supposed to be, Steve. It was supposed to be, news organizations were supposed to report the news to you, not bits and pieces and lie to you. So the reason it's important is because we need to control the next mainstream media, not the institutions.
So if people want to reach you to have any questions, we don't ask questions here because we have a lot of people that can't ask questions. We're on 50 to 100 podcasters, all kind of broadcast streams. So if they want to reach out to you, how do they reach out to you? Is there an email or something they can reach out to you?
Yeah, I'll put in my email in the.
Yeah, they won't see it in the chat. Why don't you tell them what it is?
Oh, yeah, just sam@yournews.com. You won't see it in the chat?
Well, the people on the Zoom will, but not all.
Oh, right. Yes. Okay. So I forgot about that. Yeah. So if somebody wants to reach out to me and has questions or wants to participate, it's sam@yournews.com.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming on. It took me 3 years to get you on here, so I appreciate you coming on. All right, great. Yournews.com. I believe in it. So get on it and get this app, and you'll see a lot of good news. Next up is Jason Fraser from Georgia. He's got some important news for you. Jason, come on down on mute.
All right. Hello, Steve. Good afternoon. Appreciate you having me on here. So we've got a lot of things going on in Georgia, and I guess I wanted to walk you through some of the things that I have accomplished and kind of where we're at here. First thing I want to say though, so that way I don't get distracted and not get to the end, is I believe the only way we're going to have clean elections in this country is for one-day elections with hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots counted at the precinct. And that is the only way we know that there is a chance of a clean election. You get bipartisan teams counting the ballots before they leave. So there's less opportunity for things to happen. And absentee needs to only be where absolutely necessary. So military, elderly, disabled, limited as much as possible, but give it to the folks that need it. So that's my 2 cents there. And we've got the Hand Count Roadshow with Mark Cook traveling through Georgia right now, and I've met with him the last few days. And he did a demo for us here in Georgia, and essentially we broke up teams and did hand counts. And I had seen his video, but never tried it. I halfway listened because that's just kind of how we are these days, talking to some folks. And then our team of 4 counted the ballots. It was a piece of cake. It was fun. You get to know folks. And that is the way elections should be run, in my opinion. That way, anybody can do it. It's not complicated. I mean, my background is mechanical engineering. I've been trying to learn the election process in Georgia for years. It is incredibly complicated. There's no current state map, nothing to follow. It is just an over-engineered, convoluted design. And it is that way, in my opinion, to make it difficult, make it hard for people to follow the process, and make it impossible to audit. So that's my 2 cents there. And then I want to spend the rest of the time kind of walking you through my journey. And that way, hopefully other folks can follow what I've done and do a better job than even I've done. I mean, before 2020, I didn't even know there were election boards. I didn't know we had voter rolls in the states. I mean, I was like most people, I had a life, I had kids, I still have kids and a wife, and like to go outside and enjoy life. But now everything I do is election integrity. So how I got involved is not knowing what to look at. I just jumped in and decided to be a poll tech at the elections. I figure if there's an issue, it's within the system. So I signed up and worked a few elections. And I would always recommend, as much as we need poll watchers to work the polls and see what's going on, it is tremendously better to be a poll worker. So that way you can be the one that's hired. You can be the one that's not going to make mistakes or cause issues. If you're simply a poll watcher, which those are great. If you can't work, watch. But a poll watcher is simply documenting what other folks do. And if they're doing something shady, all you can do is document it, and good luck getting it undone. So poll work where you absolutely can. And if you read the training manual, you will be the expert in the room, and you can absolutely prevent issues. I did that early on. I don't poll work anymore simply because my name is out there. I don't feel like it would be wise for me to poll work. Let's just put it that way. But anyway, as I was saying, is once you start to learn the process and become the expert, you will quickly learn that even though, let's say, for example, in my world, I live in Fulton County, Georgia. It's got, close to 1 million residents. If you just read the manuals, if you read election law, you will very quickly realize you are one of the experts in your county, which is a little scary, to be honest. I would say I'm one of the experts in Georgia now. I'm not the only one. There's a lot of great folks doing this, so don't think I'm taking credit from those guys. It's a hell of a team effort here. But once you become the expert, then you can even be the guy on the election board, the guy or gal up there. And I was nominated to be on the election board in 2023. Long story short is the Democrats on the Board of Commissioner blocked me, so I didn't get to work that term. But then I was nominated again in 2025, and that seat is currently empty as we're going through litigation with the Democrats again blocking me. And they're blocking me because I have seen issues, I have documented issues. I have found over 11,000 people registered more than once just in Fulton County. And they do not want somebody that can't be bought off, that knows what side of a computer to sit on, and actually will learn election law. They want somebody that'll sit up there and go along to get along. And that's just not how we need to operate these days. I mean, work with the other folks, but you got to know the law. You got to know how to make things right. So one of these days I'll get on the board. Hopefully that case will get through appeals court this month. That is where it's scheduled. So by Georgia law, we've got till the end of the month for it to get through appeals. And then one way or another, it's going to go to the Georgia Supreme Court before I ever get on there. So we'll see what happens. But at any rate, learning the election law is critical. Working with your local legislator is incredibly important. And I say that as a guy that, again, is still fairly new to this. I just assume the folks at the Capitol know what they're doing. But once you take a step back and realize there are people that go to the Capitol and become a legislator because they're very passionate about school boards. They're very passionate about lowering crime. They have their mission that they're focused on. They may not be the expert on election law. They may not understand the gaps in the system. The folks that are getting registered and voting in multiple states. As I've turned in complaints that one was being heard today that I'll cover in a second, that a guy moved to Florida, filed a permanent change of address, had registered to vote in Florida, voted in Florida multiple times, and then our voter rolls show that he came back to Georgia and voted in Georgia as well as Florida in the 2024 general election. So that case just got calendared out to next month, but it will get investigated. And that's what the data shows. Whether or not he did the voting in person himself or whether somebody voted for him, either way, leaving somebody on the voter rolls that moves out of state lets opportunities like that happen. So it's critical to expose these things, show people that, you know, issues do happen. And double voting is a real thing. It's not this mystery that just never happens. And once you start exposing it, then their narrative changes from, well, there was no fraud to there was a little bit of fraud. It just wasn't enough fraud. And they continue to move the ball. But as you expose these things and teach legislators where the gaps are, then you can move the ball legislatively and try to fix some of these gaps. A law might be written for a small county in rural Georgia where, elections are run clean. Well, Fulton County might drive a truck through the slight gap in the election code, interpret things as a criminal would, and cause problems. So you have to kind of work with the legislature and say, well, that might work in South Fulton or South Georgia. It won't work in Fulton. And this is why, this is why, and this is why. So once you become the expert, build that relationship, then you can start to move the ball forward. Again, 5 years ago, I was a nobody from nowhere. I didn't know this stuff. Now all the legislators know who I am, and I can go in their offices and talk about these things and move that ball forward. So I've come a long way, and I say that not to toot my horn, but to say if I can do it, anybody can do this. And we need everybody to do this. Do what you can. If you're good at public speaking, go to the Board of Elections hearing. When I started going to those, I was 2 or 3 people out of the entire audience. Nobody went to there. You would have this auditorium with hundreds of seats with 3 people in it. Nobody went to those meetings, even though there's approximately 1 million people living in Fulton County. So if you start going to those, bring your friends, teach them about these problems, and that is how we win. We educate, let them know it's not fake news, let them know it's not a conspiracy theory whenever you see the neighbor down the street that moved to Florida 10 years ago on the voter rolls. So make it easy to see. In some of the counties, they actually, if you find an issue, they're offended that you found it, and they clean up their voter rolls. Fulton County, on the other side, if you find an issue, you've almost got to shame them by making videos which I've done recently, showing people registered to vote at train stations. At one of my favorites is a jury duty parking lot where somebody's registered to vote. Abandoned houses, virtual mailboxes that I found that almost 140 people registered to one virtual mailbox. Those kind of things really resonate with people because there is no excuse for it. So finding those things, if the county will work with you, let them clean it up. If they won't, expose it, wake up the population to the issues. That'll help get more people off the couch, more people involved, more people working the elections. And I think everyone on your call understands hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots is the solution. But until we can show that there is an abundance of people applying to work the elections, I'm talking thousands of people applying, they're going to say, as they keep saying in Fulton, well, we can't get people to work the polls. There is no way we can get the numbers we need to count ballots at the election. So we've got to show up. We've got to get involved, and that is how we'll get to hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots, in my opinion. So exposing, teaching, waking up the masses, and that's really what I'm trying to do. I mean, I strongly believe there's some manipulation in the voter rolls, but until we can get the people to show up, there is no way we're going to win. And as far as some of your previous speakers, I was hearing them talk about the executive orders that hopefully will come. Absolutely, we need that. We need to get rid of the machines. But until we see people getting off the couch and getting involved, I struggle to see that that's going to work. And I know we've got the numbers, we've got the passion. I think it's a lack of understanding of how people can get involved. So we've just got to tell our friends, apply. Even if you don't end up working that day, put your name on the list. Anybody can take a day off of work, take a vacation day. Saving our country is the most important thing we can do right now. So just get involved. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
You got it. Thank you. Okay, we have
Thank you,
one more speaker. You got it. We have one more speaker. I want to just remind you tomorrow, precinctprojectusa.org. I see Jonathan Broadbent on there. He's helped us with precinct strategy, precinct project. Go there now, sign up. Tomorrow it'll be on Stern American and all the different podcasts. I'm glad to have you on there. Want to thank Robin Sachs. She's helping us with what she's doing, putting us on X. We appreciate that. Our next speaker, last speaker, he's been at a meeting all day, so I'm sure he's tired. Dr. Rick Richards. Thank you for coming on. Unmute.
Thank you very much, Steve. I'm happy to be here. Rick Richards from Evans, Georgia. Just have left the State Board of Election meeting. More news later. I wanted to start with Richard's rules, something I've lived by since 1980. Rule 1, he who has data wins. Rule 2, he who has good data wins a lot. Rule 3, he who has good data in real time will win at 4. Rule 4, people who have good data in real time before anybody else will really piss everybody else off. Sam, I was pleased to hear about your tool. I'm fixing to give you ongoing 5,000 leads to every one of those 5,000 with the new tool that I'm announcing today. So I'm going to share my screen now. Bring it up here. Share and application, entire screen, share. Well, there we go. Let me get that out of the way. And get that out of the way. I'm going to talk about Ellie. I was the owner and founder of Eagle AI. We ran that program for several years. After the election, we took everything that we learned and started using it to build a new system where most of the product was automated. We had hundreds and hundreds of people using that one, but they were having to do a lot of work. So now we've automated that work and it's available to you for the elector list beginning tomorrow. So let's talk a little bit about it. Trying to get my slide to work here. There we go. Most people compare us with Ellie with Eric. Eric's 24 states in DC. They have 3 sources of data: the SSS Master Death List, the NCOA, and the voter roll. Ellie has 45 states plus the District of Columbia. We have voter rolls from all of them. They give us the usual information. Eric uses NCOA, 48 months. We use that. We also get our NCO data from BCC software, which is the same place Eric gets it. So the data in the Eric is the same as the data we have basically. But we also add 60 months of history, PCOA, proprietary change of address information. We buy obituaries from proprietary source as well as funeral homes and newspapers. We use Google Business, Maps, Street. We use Zillow for housing profiles. We also use the coding accuracy support system from the post office to determine whether an address is even eligible to register to vote. And we also use the same data to determine whether the mailing address is really deliverable. We have purchased all 159 million county property address entries. property class codes, land use codes, assessor data, homestead tax, sales data, legal description, number of rooms, number of bedrooms, owner occupancy. We have all of that information at a glance. We have 226 million registrations. We have 159 million property records. We have 45 states. All total, we have over 80 billion data elements in ELE. How does that compare? Well, the state records come back from ERIC. They have 300 lookups they have to do. We have, using brute force, comparing 24 state to 24 state data, using brute force analysis, they have 300 opportunities. ELE has 1,035. We have they have 104 million, 37%. We have 226 million, 95%, 2.1 times the registrations. For the real math data geeks out there, ERIC has 5.4 quadrillion data management. When they look at all of the information, we have 4.6 times that, 25 quadrillion data elements if we did that. The other important factor, ERIC will never be able to grow more than a few states. We are waiting at this time for voter roll data from Alabama, Kentucky, Nebraska, and Vermont. We have New Hampshire on hand, so we'll have all but North Dakota in short order. They produce four types of data, produce 6 reports bi-monthly on 4 of them. They charge Georgia $108,000. They need 26 state-to-state contracts to get the rest of the data. We have 22 data ingestion sources. We produce over 350 reports automatically, and it's available 24/7 to anybody who's got a subscription. These are all of the sections. I'm not going to go into these here, just point out that they're there. They're color-coded. Light blue is Secretary of State data. Dark blue is Post Office data. Purple is moved data. Orange is property tax data. And green is obituary data. So that's how we categorize it out. If we click on incomplete data, the first section, we have the problems with the data. Birth data errors, name blanks error. In Georgia, we have over 1.5 million middle registrations that don't have the proper middle name. We have 441,000 who voted before the registration date. These are some of the special characters, all sorts of trash that's in there. When we go to the cases, under the cases tab, it brings up 2 pie graphs. The number of cases, now let me define case. Case is that another database says there's a problem with that registration. That's all it means. Doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean it needs to come off the roll. It means there's a problem that needs to be investigated. This graph shows that out of the 8 million, 28% have a case. Of those cases, almost all of them are related to, 3/4 are related to that. So we have the information, and the second one is address. We get incomplete data, registration address. Let's go look at those. These are the ones that were verified by the post office. We have commercial mail. That's a UPS store, 1,200 of those. We have invalid data entry. The straight number's not right. 60,000 of those. Missing apartment number, 196,000. Invalid range, meaning they made it up. Primary range is missing. It's not there. So mail dropper address. Those are places that get their mail in a box and are not eligible for a mailing address. So we can look at those, and we have it set up so that we can click on the item, and we click on the item, and it goes right to the internet. And I'm going to be showing live data, so please don't copy the screen, and please don't share that information. This is a real person right there, first in. We can look up the person. We can go to the ID and search the rest of the data. We have all the important data on the screen. Then we have the address type, the registration address, the mailing address, and the proprietary change of address says this is the best one. If you want to get a hold of them by mail, use this one. Real helpful in validating information. We also have their reg history. So all the registrations that we have are listed. We have their voting history. We have 14 people registered at this place. We can go to each one of them by clicking the arrow. We have the property tax data and the cases of tax data. And I'll go back up, and we want to look this one up. So we'll click here and see who it is. It goes to the internet, takes us there, and it's a UPS store. We copy that information, paste it in the chart, and we got it. So we send that. When we hit submit, that actually sends that case to that county inbox, notifying the county that they have a problem. All 3,143 counties in the United States have an inbox. So that's what that's about. So let me go back to what we're doing here, and I'll get a couple more. So that's this. Let's move on down. Come on, click on it to make it go. Okay. So that's a summation of what the submission to the county looks like. They have the URLs, they can verify themselves, but they also have the pictures and the information that the user puts in. We're sending credentials to all 3,143 counties at no charge. They will be able to use this tool. We're making it available to the John Q. public. All of y'all can apply for privileges, no charge. You must be a U.S. registered voter with active status on your voter roll. We don't want problems with people who are not supposed to be there. So here we have 201 Washington Street. We all in Georgia know what that is. That's a Presbyterian church with 1,500 people registered at it. So we decided to produce a report, which is available under reports. And I can show you the number of people who are registered at any address, all the addresses for any state and any county. You just select them. And Sam, this is where your journalists go. They can go to, let's pick one. Let's pick Brantley County, which I know nothing about. They only have 2 with over 10. Let's go to Cobb. I know they got some stuff. Cobb. So here you got these places. You can give your citizen journalists those addresses, cut them loose. They go out to the sites, take pictures, look at the addresses. We'll drill down on it. They want to get the exact voting information. I got that too. It's right there. Their full profile. We call this the story of the case. We got their address. We got their voter rolls. We can click on any of them and bring up all that information. How many are registered? There they are. So that's how we do that one. Let me get back on this. Come on. Oh, boom. Okay. Boom, boom. So we got moved. In Georgia, we have 660,000 people who have moved and do not live at the address they're registered at, 8%. We have 73,000 who have moved and registered at the new address. We have 4,000 who have moved and registered and still voted. We're in Georgia. And we have 34,000 who have moved and voted at the new place. So if we pick pick these, we'll just pick one. And here's Stephen Glenn Williamson. This is your case, Jason, by the way. Stephen Glenn Williamson comes up. He's voted twice. We've got the Georgia information directly from the Secretary of State based on the voter roll of 3/5/26. We've got the exact data, and we had affidavits and chain of custody documents from Florida Secretary of State, and it is dated 1/3. So both these state voter rolls are refreshed every 2 months. So we have those. Then we can go down and look at their story. You see that this is registered in Giles Road in Georgia and Sumter Grove. His best address is Georgia, but he's voting in both places. So we can go down, get his votes history. We can look at his property tax at both locations. So again, we can drill down on the data and get the whole story, hit submit, get the documentary education, hit submit, and it goes straight to the county for them to work. That's another of the same thing. I won't go into that since they don't have much time, but this is an example of the owner having homestead tax exemption, property class code, owner occupied, so they should be there. And here's the land use code. No bedrooms though, something's wrong there. So this is the cases, and it'll list all the cases associated with the registration from whatever category. So when the county or you are looking at it, you can say, well, what else you might need to look at. And if you work the case and submit it, it goes away for everybody else. So it's not going to be redundant work. And the county has the operational control for activity there. This is where you add a file or add a image. This is a breakdown of the exempt property class. If I want to know all the people registered at cemeteries, I just click this button. Churches, click this button. Vacant land, click this button. We can just click there and go right to it. You got all the records, you got the line item, and then you get the drill down for the detail, and then you've got all the documentary evidence. This is a death case. It lists the sources. We buy the proprietary database. This is also one we found with Eagle Eye. So we give the sources of the data to the county. They see exactly what you're seeing, and we click on the link. It copies the URL. It copies the information here, documents who was working the case. We can click on one of these. If it has an up arrow, we can click on Incivita there, and it copies all the information about the person, takes it over to their website, plugs it into their website, looks them up, and then tells you whether it's there or not. If it's there, it will copy the information to here so that you can paste the image there and you click deceased. When you click deceased, it sends this to the county with a live link. Of course, the county can take all of the county submissions and print them out as Excel spreadsheet or CVS file and work it on their own with the hyperlink in the spreadsheet so they can go straight to it and not have to search Google or search wherever they're searching. There's the spreadsheet. Just click on the link. It takes them to whatever they want to look at. They can then take a copy of our submission, paste it into their own voter database, and they have the documentary evidence to make a change, at least change them to inactive. So the counties are asking for individualized evidence. We provide that. They're asking for personal knowledge. You've done a lot of work to get this knowledge. We've got that. That means knowledge of the registration, because we're not challenging the person. We don't need to know the person. We're challenging the registration. So personal knowledge of registration, probable cause, and the Georgia legislation defining probable cause includes the things I just showed you. So we won't have to submit challenges anymore to the friendlies. We just send them this, take them a spreadsheet, take them some coffee and donuts, take them about 50 cases. They'll all be good. Then go back the second time. They'll ask you how you got it. You'll tell them you got this program. Would they like credentials? So you give the county election workers their own credentials. They will work the cases. You don't have to file any more challenges. And when you call them and say, oh, by the way, my Aunt Peg moved to Florida, that involves a whole lot of different processes, policies, and procedures than if you give them 50 challenges. So don't need to do challenges unless they fail to react to the data you take them. So put the documentary out, give them the list in the mailbox. So we have twice the states, more than twice the registration, multiple additional curated state, federal, and proprietary data sources. We automatically integrate all that information for 350 actionable reports at present. We're working on more. And they are recruiting their enemies and making them frenemies by sharing accurate data. So we're providing total transparency of the U.S. voter roll to everybody in the United States, active voter registered. So to apply for credentials, to evaluate the same data that's presented, everybody's looking at the same data now, and submit the findings in a current courtesy. So ELE is for election citizens and officials, incorporates the data I mentioned, no contract, no submission, no cost. Available anywhere you got Wi-Fi. It runs on any browser. It runs on computer or tablet or phone. No setup is required. We're still adding new features. 3,143 election offices will get invitations. You can have it. In order to get it, go to the website, theelectorlist.com. It'll be up this weekend. When it asks for the user token, SS260318, I put that information in the chat. You can also use it to verify your own credentials. And when you put in yours you put in yours, all your story will come up. So you not only can check your registration, you can check how long it's been that way. And if anybody's been active, then inactive, then active again. You can look and see if you have voted and when and what elections. You can look at your property. I'm not doing property yet, but we're still doing your voter history. So you can validate and correct your registrations. And then the second step is apply for credentials. It's available now. So
Thank
Steve,
you very
that's
much.
what I
We
got
gotta-
for you.
Yep, we got to close down. Thank you very much. We're going to close this down. Remember, if
Let me turn my volume up. Okay.
yep, if you want
All
to
right.
email me at stern1054@gmail.com. We'll be on tomorrow, same time, same station, 2:00, Stern American Rumble, the War Room, Getter, everybody else who's helped us today. We want to thank them. We'll give you more people who have to thank tomorrow. We've been doing this now for 4 years. We've had over 500 different people on it. If you have anybody who'd like to speak, please let me know. We'll try to get them on if they have something good to say. Thanks again. Been a pleasure. Go to theflagshirt.com. We could use your business. www.theflagshirt.com. I'm wearing my sweatshirt because it's a little chilly in Florida. Thanks a lot. Want to close it down, Anthony? Not sure if Raj wants to say anything. Is he there or is he down?
Nope, sir, just you.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much for everybody coming on.